Welcome, folks. I see people kind of popping in here. So glad that you are with us. My name is Eric, and I'm the former entrepreneur in residence at the New Haven Public Library. Uh, Currently a patron of the library, an artist, an entrepreneur, a coach, and I like to say an overall nice guy. Um, Today, we're going to be talking with, it's pretty fair to call you a multi-instrumentalist, right, Dylan? Yeah,
Yeah.
I know you definitely got flute and sax. Is there anything else I don't know about? I bet you there's some, um, what else is in there?
Um, Not recently, but also harmonica, blues style
Oh,
harmonica.
no,
Some
see, I
key.
didn't know that.
Yeah, I gotta really blow the dust out of that stuff. But like keys, in a past life, drums as well, drum set.
Yeah, nice, nice. Did I ever hear you talking about clarinet?
Clarinet, yes. That's something I kind of put on pause a little bit,
Okay,
but that's something I've been trying to develop past couple years to round
it's a,
out the kind of like single reed woodwind family,
there you go, there you go.
Um, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, sweet, sweet. So a quick note for those. I think it's probably just Nate. Uh, this interview will be recorded. And so if you do not want to be recorded, if you just don't say anything and have your screen off, then you will not be recorded. But you should be aware that we will be recording this session, and so that's a thing that's happening. Feel free to pop any questions that you have or comments or anything in the chat. I will be opening it up to Dylan if he's okay with taking a question or two from the folks who are here. Um, so if you'd like, um, you think of something midway or something like that, don't hesitate to toss it down there in the chat. And we will probably keep folks mostly on mute until we get to that part. But if you are burning to say something, you can raise your hand, I believe, by just going to the participant section, and there should be a button toward the bottom there to be able to signal that you'd like to jump in. So please feel free to do that. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Dylan, you ready?
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice, cool. Well, I'm so glad that you're here. One of the things I am kind of secretly up to is, wanting to get to know my artist and musician friends a little bit better. I think now more than ever, now as much as ever, but there's an urgency, I think, right now in the world for community and for people coming together. And so this for me feels like an effort at that, as well as just kind of thinking about the kind of the place of the artist in our current moment in history. Dylan, you and I have had a couple of conversations about, like, where we are and what's happening, and all of the good and bad and ugly that's going on. So I'm sure our conversation will stray into some of these areas, and we'll be quite intentional about moving into some other areas. But for right now, tell me. Well, first off, are you from New Haven?
Yes and no. So
Okay.
the first 2.5 years of my life, I was born in Los Angeles, actually.
Okay.
My parents had lived there for about 10 years. We lived about 2.5 years beyond when I was born, moved here in like 96, huge blizzard, you know, great,
Wow.
great welcome to the Northeast.
What an introduction.
Yeah. And so, yeah, pretty much since 96, I've been literally in the same neighborhood of New Haven, Westville, section of New Haven, and, you know, on one street or another, and then went to college, you know, did all my schooling up through high school in New Haven, college in Ohio, and back in New Haven since then. So, yeah.
Wow. Cool. Yeah. I think that makes you a New Havenite, man. I'm going to say that makes you from New Haven. You were born somewhere else, but you are from New Haven. That's what I'm going to say.
Okay. Yeah, I'll receive that. I'll receive that. I take a lot of, like pride and gratitude in being here, like located here.
Me too. Right? Like let me ask you this. What, from your perspective, what is it about New Haven that instills this kind of pride? What do you think?
Well, I can say for me, it kind of started in elementary school, developing, you know, friendships, some of which have lasted through, you know, with folks who have stuck around in New Haven, some of whom haven't, you know, just and family friendship, you know, family friendships. Yeah. Honestly, I don't know. I didn't really feel super a part of New Haven until after college. Being in New Haven as an adult, I learned how to just be in, you know, community. Honestly, that's kind of what, you know, prior to that, you know, all my connections, even in this city, were kind of through my parents, in a sense, you know, through like adults present. And so coming back, like, I would say what else, pride, renewal, and like reinforcement, recommitment to connections from the past, even in the same city, specifically through music, being in community with musicians and creatives.
That's great. You would have think we set that segue up, but we did not. But it's great. So tell me about that, man. Tell me about your musical journey. Where are you coming from with it? Where are you headed? And like, talk to me about music.
So I guess I'll try to start from some kind of beginning. So, you know, growing up, it kind of it stems from very early interest. You know, in California, my parents, like, are both enthusiasts of music. My mom's actually a musician. She'll never talk about it, really. But
I don't think I knew that.
She sings, plays guitar, has a lot of facility. You know, violin, was in pep and like marching bands in high school, was really involved in music community in that era of her life. And like, you know, lullabies. Let me start with that, because so a song that I've kind of returned to in a big way. I've shared this with Paul briefly, but there's so James Taylor. My mom is super into James Taylor, super into Leonard Cohen. Lots of like kind of finger-picked guitar, like, you know, New York folk movement era folks, and like her voice really carries those songs in a really amazing way. And so throughout like my baby years, I guess, she would sing me to sleep. She would, you know, sing lullabies. This song called "You Can Close Your Eyes" by James Taylor. I can't listen to it without just completely breaking down every time. It's like from a past life kind of thing. It's just like I don't necessarily can't make a connection like logically or autobiographically with it, but emotionally the memory is there. I remember my dad actually like wrote me a lullaby. You know, he doesn't talk about music, you know, he's not like super like, you know, vocal about his musicianship, but you know, he's written many a song that only his children have heard. And you know, and so you know, so from that, you know, from literally just the parental, you know, standpoint, and being enthralled with, you know, busking musicians and public kind of like musicians in public space in LA. My parents would stroll me down to wherever to hear folks. My mom has a great story about me carrying around kind of like, gifting, and then me carrying around like these kind of like baby sized, instruments. I had like, a little guitar growing up. I still have this like, functional, this toy, saxophone. I also used to carry around and, chomp to bits.
Oh, I saw that. I saw that picture. You posted that recently, right?
Yeah. And I don't know what year that was made, but like, it's an artifact. And, I participate, with as much as I could at the time with like, musicians playing on the street, and like, I liked to be involved, I guess, and like developing a self-consciousness around, how good or how accepted I was as a musician, like kind of like made me like it. That was like the most kind of like forthcoming I was about being part of like a musical community, and that's definitely like I've allowed that to return in a certain way, like through school. Like I practiced music and like was part of concert bands and like kind of like combo situations and things like that. And I think that was like I kind of saw that as super it was super like outward, like directed from like external. I didn't really take kind of ownership of it yet, not until probably like 7th or 8th grade, which was a time at which I was like considering flute was my, effectively my first kind of long-term instrument. You play recorder in 3rd or 4th grade oftentimes, like a popular instrument, but I came to the flute in 5th grade about, and I don't know, I didn't really see a life in music yet. I hadn't really seen,
well, I mean, you could be forgiven, Dylan. You were in 8th grade, man.
And then, no, I'm just telling you what I was, I'm not making any excuses. I'm just giving context. And then, I was considering quitting the flute for a long time, actually. And especially kind of where I was, the age I was I was like one of two and then one of one, boy students playing flute in my school. And so, and it's like interesting how that instrument gets gendered. It's like gendered either as like masculine, kind of going back to like the symbolism around like the deity, Pan in Greek mythology.
Oh, interesting.
Like
right.
Symbol. But how it's kind of like been very much like it's been juggled around in terms of like gendered context since like forever. It's like, and so I think at that point I was like, I don't know if I want to continue doing this. I feel really self-conscious about it. My dad actually is kind of responsible for kind of like encouraging me to continue. He's like before you like quit this, consider this. He took, I don't know if you're familiar with Jethro Tull and Ian Anderson, so it's like 70s British prog rock folks. Ian Anderson kind of built his career. I'll go and say this. He built his career admiration, but also he really profited off of the musicianship and genius of Rahsaan Roland Kirk. You're familiar? Yeah. So like,
I am, but give us a super quick primer for those who may not be.
Okay, Rahsaan Roland Kirk is a super polymath, multi-instrumentalist, visionary in the world of Black American music, from Cleveland or Columbus, Ohio. He was, I don't know if he was born blind, but he was effectively blind by the time he was an adult. He was someone who was often considered, he was really not like, he didn't consider himself this way, but he was marketed to folks as like, it's like, it's really awful. Like as like a really kind of like, freak show performer, because he could play 3 saxophones at once. He did this really amazingly expressive flute technique where he'd be humming and singing and vocalizing into the flute.
Yeah.
And actually,
Is he the first one to do that?
no, I doubt
Okay.
it. There,
Okay.
as I've learned, and I don't know if it's direct lineage, but as I've learned, from studying and learning repertoire from, for example, certain regions of West Africa in Guinea, Conakry, in
Yeah.
southern Senegal, in the Casamance region. There's a flute tradition where there is a lot of vocalizing. Tambin
Gotcha.
is the name of the flute. It's like, but basically, I don't know if that's related.
Yeah.
But in the blues, in the music that Russ and Roland Kirk a lot of times is performing, like in playing the blues, like the voice is his voice literally comes across. And
That's incredible.
so Ian Anderson kind of co-opted that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And brought it to like it was already Russ and Roland Kirk toured the world, but and Ian Anderson brought it to like an essentially like specifically like white rock audience.
A different crowd. Yeah.
And so at the Schubert, and I want to say the early 2000s, Ian Anderson came to perform. My dad got tickets. Both of us went, and that kind of made me not quit playing the flute.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
well, so I see you grab the flute.
Yeah, well, I was just gonna do a brief demo in terms of like,
let's do it.
Showing yeah, let me actually, so this is this is a song, this is a Roland Kirk song called Serenade to a Cuckoo that Ian Anderson, Jethro Tull like covered, and they credited him, I think, but they covered on their first record.
Yeah. Great.
And just like demo the technique.
Yeah, let's see if we can hear it.
And
yeah, that's incredible, dude. Yeah, just for a second, like I just want that to sink for folks that are listening. That's incredible. You sound amazing. And here's what's interesting. I think there are so many traditions like this that for reasons that will in this moment it becomes clear that there are things, other things at play, like white supremacy and these other things where little bits and pieces of culture get sort of taken and co-opted. So I really do appreciate hearing your understanding of the lineage, because I think it also helps to inform the way that we think about these different kinds of art forms. Mm-hmm. So I just want to just sort of like appreciate you for bringing that, because I'll be frank with you, I've heard of Jethro Tull, mm-hmm. right? But I haven't heard of this other guy. Now, I have seen this 3 sax thing, so probably he's in my consciousness, but not in the same way mm-hmm. that Jethro Tull is, right? Mm-hmm. So I think this is the kind of thing where peeling back the layers and kind of looking a little bit deeper reveals a truer kind of understanding of our cultural moment. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So okay. So I'm thinking about. Also, I wanted to share something with you. This is sort of like a sort of secret that I'm gonna share with you and the lovely folks here on this call. I don't think anybody knows this. Well, I see Maz is on the call. She might know. I always wanted to play flute, dude.
Oh.
That was honestly, that was the first instrument that I was ever like, I want to learn to play that.
Mm-hmm.
This was before I discovered drums. This was before Gonga. This was like little baby Eric, figuring out my way in the world. That was the instrument that I wanted to play. But I was also one of those kids that wanted to do karate and that wanted a chemistry set and that wanted to take dance lessons. I wanted to do all the things. And my mom was like, dude, you know, it wasn't even so much that she was trying to say like you can only do so much. I think it was more like I can only do so
Mm-hmm.
much.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
like, so flute became sort of back burner for me. But yeah, man, I'm a fan, dude. So, I don't know. I may be coming to see you for some lessons.
Hey, welcome. You're welcome.
So all right. So I'm thinking about you, kind of in this space where you're kind of waffling, you're back and forth with flute. Your dad kind of, offers you a piece of inspiration to kind of keep going, some encouragement to keep going, and also like I'm hearing the ways in which your parents had a pretty powerful influence on your musicianship, your musicality, and so I'm sort of wondering how how those values, either from your parents or ones that you've developed yourself over time, how those values kind of show up in your work
Mm-hmm.
and your music and just like who you are as a person. I heard you mention community and the importance of that musical community to you. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, tell me about that. Tell me about the what values are showing up in what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think first and foremost, a balance of talking about community, a balance of kind of self value that allows to be able to take take moments of attention in a performance, of being a soloist or being a featured voice in a collective, like musical collective, in a band,
Yeah.
however that occurs. You know my that goes back to like one of my really good band directors, Mr. P, and he actually used to be the joint band director for Edgewood and Sheridan in New Haven for a long time,
Mm,
and kind of starting to equip students with like the language, and also just even self confidence, and self kind of value in what we bring to this music that we may or may not have so much so much background in, but through kind of like figuring it out, even in front of a lot of people,
yeah.
how that comes to be valuable. So balance of that kind of dynamic with being part of a tapestry, being part of like a, a collective, being able
Mm,
to be in the background, being able to be in the background, being able to be up front, um, and that's like a very like spatial
mm,
metaphor. um, you know also also the value of really taking chances. I am a long-term recovering perfectionist, and so
yeah.
sometimes I kind of talk myself out of opportunities to even advance an idea, to put something, to externalize something, and so really coming around to taking time and just effort, and less filtering of my own ideas. That's the way that's played out, I guess, over the past 3 months or so. Is I've been able to learn how to use a digital audio workshop, Logic. I work with Logic Pro, um,
Mm,
and just recording myself on whatever instrument, whether it be saxophone, flute, or keys. Actually have a MIDI keyboard, things like only I have heard so far. And it's not necessarily by design, but I'm seeing myself start to put more focus on getting things out versus like trying to figure out whether it's worth doing or creating, and just doing it and creating it and then deciding whether it can go further or not. And and my parents, I think, for a long time I fought with them about like, they're always encouraging me to, get involved with this music thing, this music thing, whatever. And I think I felt I kind of pushed back a little bit, and that like I really wanted it to come from me. I really wanted it to come from me, like the motivation to want to participate in certain ensemble stuff and certain like just opportunities to perform or just do music with people. And I've been able to feel more settled with like, taking great opportunities, like receiving great opportunities from folks that want me to get involved with what they're doing, and also becoming more settled in trying to start things, like initiating things on my own. So that dynamic.
What's interesting about what, to me, Dylan, about what I'm hearing you say is, I'm thinking about the way in which, like if I think about where we are today, right? Like this sort of cultural moment, and certainly, artists are pretty consistently on the front edges, if you will, of helping us as a society, as a community, make sense of our current, kind of like place in the world, right? Culturally, specifically, and in a lot of ways, kind of lead, like our not only sort of like on the front edges of where we are, but actually maybe even a step or two beyond. I think because of the ways that artists kind of, think about the world. And even just hearing how you describe your own, sort of progression, this kind of willingness to kind of be out in front, but then also to kind of take a step back and do this kind of, what I'm gonna in this moment call it like a dance, but really it is this it's this awareness that I think I hear from you. I see from you in a lot of different ways that, even when you are out in front soloing, for example, I always get the sense that what you're doing is really supportive of the overall work, and not about like, let me show people how amazing I can run up and down this flute, right? Like there's really something quite supportive in the work that you're doing. And so I wonder if you can tell me a little bit about that, and like, how is that showing up for you in this moment, particularly because there's not a whole lot of performance happening in the world right now.
Well, I can definitely credit a lot of the skills that I built in that to the ongoing jam events in New Haven that have been facilitated by Paul Brian Hudson, who I see is here, Jeremiah Fuller, a lot of folks in New Haven that have been, friends and family and colleagues for so long. So honestly, like if it hadn't been for them, I don't think I would be as full a musician, because at these jams there ends up being like so many people on stage, and it's like, okay, well, where can I fit in without like cranking it, so to speak, just like cranking my, like really sticking out in a bad way, or just taking too much space in general. so that's kind of where I was able to kind of practice that and kind of given an opportunity to practice that. So I am eternally grateful to Paul and anyone who's been on stage in those situations. Yeah, the fact that right now the landscape is changing for like, there really isn't performance going on. So, you know, I've been able to take notice of the kinds of ways musicians are still doing performance, whether it be, you know, on their front porch spaced out a certain distance apart from each other. You know, and stuff like that. In Hartford, there are bands that are doing that. And, you know, thinking of Tank and the Bangas, which is, you know, they have a great social media presence, and they've been
love them,
you know, doing that too. They've been quarantining together, as I'm pretty sure. And, you know, they've gotten, you know, they try to facilitate participation.
Before you go on, I kind of just want to highlight this because these folks are definitely one of my favorites. So for those of you listening, if you have not heard Tank and the Bangas, do yourself a favor. They just won the Tiny Desk concert not too long ago, right? They have, I think, maybe 2, maybe 3 albums. Brilliant. Did they win like a Grammy or an award? Like, I feel like they just won like Best New Artist or something like that.
They might have.
I'm not sure. Either way, award or no award, recognition or no recognition, although they are getting recognition. Check out Tank and the Bangas, Bangas, Bangas. Tank and the Bangas are fantastic. I just wanted to, I had to get that, I had to get that out there. Oh, Mazza says they were nominated. They were nominated. I guess they didn't win. They got robbed. I don't know who did win, but they got robbed. I know that for sure. Anyway, sorry, Dylan, please continue.
No, it's okay. So, you know, they've, you know, a lot of artists like them and other, you know, kind of artists on the cusp of, you know, doing indie stuff, doing, you know, major label stuff, like trying to engage audiences and doing, you know, doing kind of song challenges or doing kind of amplifying just the skills of like people that follow them that are also musicians. And so that's been, well, at the beginning of quarantine, that's kind of what I was looking to, because I felt kind of like in a rut. I didn't know where to start. Like, all right, do I just post up in the shed every day and just play music 10 hours a day? Do we want to do something different? Like, I don't know. And so it was really their kind of model of almost like many times a week, just getting up and showing them what was going on that day, you know, musically and stuff like that. You know, so lots of, you know, lots of going live, lots of experimentation happening. And for me, I don't make a lot of my, you know, my musical performance visible in that way right now. And also at the same time, you know, I think it was good to find out what it was like to just, you know, work with, you know, a loop station and just make a version of like a Tank and the Bangas song, which I did.
Nice.
For like loops and like just flute, you know, just using flute layers.
Sweet. Which one did you do?
Darn, quick.
My favorite.
Yeah. So all instrumental. But so, you know, there's right now at the beginning of quarantine, a lot of pressure to put out materials. Like now's the time for, you know, artists to really get to the work they've been putting off because of other labor they're doing or other, you know, responsibilities they might have out in the world away from their instruments and craft and things. And so I was continuously just trying to find a balance between like, all right, what do I want to do that I want to show people, and what I want to do that's just in progress, and I'm okay with it being in progress and behind the scenes and things. And then so there are like 2 or 3 projects that I've thankfully been able to work on, you know, with folks in or that have kind of like come to somewhat of a pause right now. But some friends, musical friends in Chicago, some friends in Providence.
Nice.
There's this community online called Steal This, all caps,
Yep.
where people post musical ideas or poetic or performance, performances of some kind, and that is encouraged to be used and to kind of layer on top of someone else's things, or like be supported by someone else's contributions, and have folks kind of mix and produce and release something brand new. I was able to connect with a friend from high school who had done this rhythm section stuff for this vocalist who had in Japan, who had given an a cappella vocal, and he produced something to it, and then I added some flute, and it became a song. So just those kinds of opportunities really have arose because of that. I will say though, in the past, what's today, the 17th? I want to say the past 2 to 3 weeks, I have not been very active musically at all. So, I'm trying
What's that about, Dylan?
So I think just me as a person, I find it very necessary to just continue to be really intentional about where my energy is going. It's really easy to notice when, things in this country, for example, are coming to like a publicly visible just head, really, in terms of movement against, for example, police violence, for example, housing violence, for example, just the tenets against the tenets of white supremacy in this country, in a systemic level. And for me, it's been useful, not just useful, it's been necessary, and like a recurring wake up call. I think for white people, for me and for me included, like it's going to be a continued wake up call until we don't have to until we don't recede from work, So I have found it really necessary to get in touch with all right, my music, what I can contribute, with my instruments, or with on Instagram, it isn't contributing really, or it doesn't have to. It's not contributing really, if I'm really being honest, to anything towards anti-racist work right now, anything towards even community building necessarily, bringing people in. It's not necessarily been a part of that. Like me presenting myself playing music isn't the thing that I think will be my way, my work in this, or the way I'm a part of this. I think it's easy for musicians like me, white young musicians who want to continue to share and I guess build an audience. In this quarantine situation, building an audience is different, but to basically make a point, intentionally or unintentionally, not address the ways we've been silent or complicit on a personal level, interpersonal level, in white supremacy and racism. And so I think one of the ways in which I've been wanting to be more present in this work as a young white musician is to take not I'm not swearing off playing music, but I'm trying to do a personal dive and take a personal inventory of what my participation is in racism, in interpersonally, and where if I am in positions to advocate for and address clear injustices right in front of me coming out of like, you know, my family or friends' mouths, you know, renewing a responsibility. Like, and I think, you know, and as musicians, as young white musicians, like coming into this work is, we're going to want to, you know, just do a one and done. We're going to want to be like, all right, this is like my grand gesture of the day. And then go back to whatever we're doing. And I've done that. I've absolutely done that. And I'm learning like, okay, well, this is, you know, for this moment, this isn't just a moment, you know, how can I be a musician in my community? And, you know, in terms of the musical community in New Haven, it's largely Black and brown, you know, and so how am I in my little corner, my workplace, in my, you know, in the private lessons I'm teaching, which aren't many, but how can I keep developing and centering just like integrity, my integrity as a musician, and like, okay, I believe in the values of completely dismantling over time, just like white supremacy, and like my particular, continue to take inventory and like rectify or grow out of damaging things that I've not been aware of, and that is long term. I think also as musicians, we think, you know, we know how to practice, you know, musicians, especially if we've been in conservatory situations, we know how to practice for a gig. We know how to like, all right, we only got the music yesterday. We know how to make it sound good today. And the thing is, it's the work of anti-racism. I'm going to speak as just, again, a young white musician who primarily plays Black and African diasporic music, and has been welcomed in like continuously into these spaces where this music is centered.
Talk about it.
I do have a particular responsibility. Like, it's not just me saying like, I'm not going to save the music world. I'm not going to save the music world from the issues. And that's not my role. My role is to address things at the ground level, you know, seeing my white musician friends, you know, continue to, or like, you know, the news cycle, right? Like the past 2 weeks, all right? Like, and like, there's a lot of attention from, you know, including among white musician friends of mine, of being like, I've been silent. So like, kind of like making these big, you know, social media posts about like, been silent to the point, and go right back to, you know, and go right back to promoting our brand, you know, and
the world,
So, and I don't, and I'm working to build stamina. It's, again, building stamina is important too, like developing muscle memory. Music, this is how it's connected, like around bringing my peers, white peers, into conversation about like, you know, noticing what they're doing right now, like noticing what we're doing right now, are you know, is what we're doing, you know, how much is what matters, you know, and like my perspective is not monolithic, and maybe it's wrong, and at the same time, I'm pretty convicted that for me right now in this moment, like my personal musical practice, although I do take my craft seriously, I also don't, I don't believe that that's what I should be centering right now, you know? And
Dylan, I really, man, I got to say, like, I really, really appreciate you saying these things and you walking the walk and talking the talk. I mean, I think, you know, I think if we're being really honest with ourselves, just generally, like much of the music, much of the popular music, particularly American music, really does come from the heart and soul of Black people, right? And so, in many ways, as musicians, we all owe a sort of musical debt to, to the legacy of Black people in this country. And so, again, like I think, this idea of practice is so very important right now. I mean, because yeah, like I agree with you. Like there's so much of what you said is it's so rich in there. And I'm just thinking about, like, the difficulty that this, oh man, that is so deeply embedded in the way that we understand our lives and the way that we move through the world. All of us, collectively, all of us. It's not just Black people. It's not just white people. It's like all of us together are experiencing the trauma. It's just that Black bodies are bearing the brunt of it, right, on a day-to-day basis. And so, I really appreciate this idea that, like, yeah, it's not going to be about the one grand gesture. It's not going to be about, let me make a statement to let people know where I am, when the reality is I haven't actually done any work. I haven't actually thought through how I'm showing up in spaces. And look, the one thing that I'll say, Dylan, is, I've had the pleasure, I've had the honor of sharing the stage with you, and you do just that. You share the stage. You're quite generous in what you do and what you play and how you play, and I've always really appreciated that, about you and your art. So I want you to know that, and I just want you to really understand that the thing that you just said is unbelievably powerful for others like yourself to hear and to understand. That it's going to require work, and it's going to be uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
Even as I hear you talking about it, I hear you sort of like processing, a little bit out loud, because it's difficult. It is. And let's not act like it's not, but also, so is learning that new piece of music. So is, trying to master the feel of a new style or something like that, right? And so as musicians, we'll take on that challenge willingly, happily, delighted to do it, right? We'll spend hours tootling away. But when it comes down to, talking about some of the challenges that we face as a community, all of a sudden, we're not so willing to put in the work, per se, right? And look, let's just call it, like, white people often are not willing, interested, to put in the work that it's required. And this other piece that you mentioned about, like, sort of, you had referred to yourself as a recovering perfectionist. I'm with you. And there's something quite uncomfortable about being messy and about trying to sort of figure it out. And I don't see that we have a choice collectively. We can no longer tolerate the trauma and the brutality to Black bodies, and it's going to require all of us, 100%. So I'm just happy to hear you say the words. So look, here's where we are, Dylan. We've got, maybe just over 5 minutes before we hit the 3 o'clock hour. If folks have any questions, please feel free to toss them down in the chat, or unmute yourself and ask if you have any questions. While folks are doing that, I want to just toss one more quick question out there. Who are you listening to? right
Hmm.
now? Who's musically? Who's inspiring you?
Okay, so I'm glad you asked that because it's fresh on my mind. I just hosted a monthly radio show that I do on WPKN in Bridgeport, third Tuesday of every month.
Third Tuesday of every month. Hold on. Let's make sure the folks in the back heard it. Third Tuesday of every month. Catch my man Dylan on PKN. What's that on the dial, Dylan?
On the dial, 89.5 FM. Also, WPKN.org. You can stream on the website. Let's see. So first name that comes to mind is Samora Pinderhughes, who honestly for me, he and Elena, who I think is honestly his better known sister, who is an amazing flutist, in her mid-20s, I want to say, but she's been an incredible influence on my approach to the flute. Samora Pinderhughes is a pianist, composer, vocalist, arranger. He's worked with Common, he's worked with Robert Glasper, he's worked with Kareem Riggins, and his recent album, Black Spring, it's an EP, it's a 4-track work, and it actually, I want to talk about this because the cover art for Black Spring is a piece by Titus Gaffar, who is in community in New Haven. Yeah, exactly. In community in New Haven.
Nice.
So there is a New Haven connection. Samora Pinderhughes continues to do musical work specifically around the kind of holistic experiences of oppression and stress and violence under white supremacy. It's very much of the moment, and also really could be of any moment in this country's history. I won't say it's timeless. I really don't like when people say things are timeless, but it's very particular to this moment, and it's also it's from a lineage. It's in a lineage of this kind of work. What else am I listening to? A lot of artists from Chicago. There's this group called Cordoba. And they're they've been around for like 6 or 7 years. They're part of like a really amazing burgeoning scene of creatives in Chicago. Also in that band is lead singer Brianna Tong, who is also in this band called Giraffe, Jeraf, an amazing band.
Nice.
Members of that band are in this other band called Blackerface. It's like a hardcore soul funk avant-garde.
Oh wow!
And that really centers literally the lead singer Jolene is an amazing artist and creative in herself. P.T. Bell. Also, 3 of these people I went to college with, and I've been seeing them like really tear it up.
Incredible. In
like DIY spaces on campus for a long time, and was able to bring them to New Haven, West Haven, to a DIY space in October to book a show for them to come through on their tour they were doing.
Nice.
And honestly, it's amazing to be able to listen to new music all the time by folks like I literally know and love,
That is pretty incredible. Yeah.
And I don't know about other. It's really hard. It's a Google Doc full of names. It really is.
Nice.
But I did want to center those people.
Yeah, that's great. And look, if you've got more names, I wonder if we Gina, can Dylan send a list that might be somehow tagged or connected to this video, so folks who want to can kind of go and follow up with some of these people? Is that something we can do?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. That would be fabulous. And also, I'm secretly just taking all of these songs and artists that you mentioned and building my own private. I mean, Eric, I remember you mentioned Afro Blue last time, and it's on loop. I mean, yep. Nice. Absolutely happy to do that.
Great. That's fantastic. Yeah. So Dylan, if you know, after the call, if you want to send a link or send over, you know, just a list of people you would like for folks to follow up on, that would be most appreciated.
Absolutely. I can
Yeah.
do that.
Great. Well, I think we're at time, unless the fabulous Mazare has any questions. Um, for those of you watching at home, you may notice Maza and I have the same last name because we're married. Hey, babe. Thanks for joining us. I guess she's got no questions. So, this has been fantastic, Dylan. Thank you so much for taking the time with us. I really, really do appreciate your perspective and how you're thinking about this. I'm really, really grateful that the music world has a you know, just a thoughtful human like yourself. I think it's incredibly important, and now certainly more than ever. I wish you all the best on your future endeavors. And do you have I know you're not doing a lot of posting and stuff right now, but do you have any socials you want folks to know about?
Sure. My Instagram handle is at Flute by the Foot. At
Nice.
Flute by the Foot. No spaces, no caps, or no special characters or anything. But that's, you know, when I've been offering things in trying to reach people in my network. That's what I've been trying to use recently.
Great.
And also Dylan Olympi McDonnell, Olimpi, McDonnell at just Facebook stuff.
Cool. Thank you again. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, man. I'm looking forward to you know, hopefully getting on the other side of COVID for sure. I think it's going to be a longer haul to get on the other side of racism.
Yeah, absolutely, without question. And that has to be, folks like me, has to be sustainable work, sustained and sustainable.
Sustained and sustainable. Yeah, I agree. But I appreciate what you're doing, and yeah, I'm looking forward to you know, hopefully sharing the stage with you again, man, soon.
Absolutely, hopefully soon.
Yeah. All right. Enjoy your evening, and we'll see you around town.
All right. Thanks so much, Eric, for having me.
All right, man. My pleasure. Be well.
Take care. Thank you.
Take care.